when some of the members wanted to make some changes, they made changes and sent it back to, I'm thinking it was you. Okay, it might have been Tammy. But is that possible if Deborah writes something up and sends it to you and we review it, if we have any questions, what would we, or I want to add a comment, how would that work?
I think that with that, I believe it was just the chairman or something on that. I don't know how that worked. I wasn't involved in it. But we can't act as a conduit, so you can't.
I knew that.
I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't.
All right.
If you're going to meet in January, we can work on the report. I can put it on your agenda. You'll just have to do your main business first, and then we'll submit it to council.
All right, I'll say right up front that I didn't have a problem with what Deborah did last year. It was concise, to the point, so just follow that format, and I don't think there'll be a concern.
Thank you.
Unless anyone else has a...
Does anyone even remember the annual report from last year? Who has it framed at home? All right.
Thank you for
Thanks.
doing the annual.
Oh, you're welcome.
So you're approving that we can work on it and just go ahead and submit it? Okay. And I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of it.
We're all in favor of that
Yes.
technique this year again, since we've been casual about it in the past. But
Next time we'll just talk about it earlier.
You know how I operate, guys, so I won't invent anything in there to make it look like we've done more than we have. All right. I think we're ready to move on. And I think as far as Chairman's matters go, when we find ourselves on the brink of this, finally feeling like we're getting some traction and we're finally able to do something productive in the community. And I know it's vitally important, I keep echoing this as well, to maintain a cheerful, positive demeanor throughout this. It'll be tested, but certainly we can do that. I just want to ask everyone to make sure, particularly Tim, since Tim's been at this a long time, that we really are seeking the most positive incentive for restoration and rehabilitation of historic properties that we can. That if we're constructing something, at the end of the day, when we're finished with this process, that we'll be able to say we did it the best way, that there wasn't a better way we could have done this. And part of my job sitting here is to ensure that all of us are willingly bringing the best of what we have to this service. We all have different talents. Likewise, it's going to make us happy knowing that we've done something to Vero that's made a lasting difference, a positive difference. We don't want to hear ourselves say, well, we tried, because that shouldn't be who we are. We aren't people that just sit in big chairs and talk some historic banter and put up a few signs and then have no real ensuing economic change or aesthetic results. We know we can make a difference. We know we can help. We've all heard before, commissions have no real power, and we know that's different. We know that we have the power to influence and guide people, and that we can do that cheerfully and provide, should be irresistible incentive. My concern with the way we've arranged things so far is that it assumes that people are going to be drawn to historic preservation locally, pretty much supporting the theory that they're going to have self-inflicted imposed restrictions to be part of a greater good that they may or may not be familiar with unless they're like Jeffrey and have lived in wonderful places like Lexington, Kentucky. This has a much greater chance of adhering, I think, in beachside properties, because those properties are going to benefit the most from the way that we are going about our business here with the ad valorem tax incentive structure. And I remember, did I ask you in an email, Tim, about how many permits have been issued in those two neighborhoods, because all of this hinges on not just simply having a property in a designated neighborhood, but on improvements to the properties in the designated neighborhoods.
I'm not really certain that it's going to have that much beneficial effect on the island, because you're talking about significant properties there, and that's where we got a lot of the opposition to any protection of historic resources. That's why, I mean, there isn't a lot of money to be had for that. It's probably not a big incentive. I mean, it's more of an incentive for people that don't have as much money, I think, if it works the way it is. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I know. I read your memo. I disagreed with it, but that's what.
I have been looking forward to having this conversation with you. I think it's necessary, particularly if I don't understand what the benefit is or how that process is going to really work. Because to me, now today, Anna showed us that one marvelous renovation. You weren't here for it, where they took a small historic structure, were able to enlarge the footprint many, many times. I mean, this would be applicable to any house in Riamar, Central Beach, that has the property and has been made aware of the fact that, indeed, if they're sensitive to the original construction, they can go ahead and build out immensely, and then those improvements would not be taxable for 10 years. The value.
No, it could be up to 10 years. It could be up to 100%. That's all going to be a discretion of the city council, probably on your recommendation. So it's not a foregone. There's a lot of play in this thing. So, that's why.
Talk to me about the play.
Well, the play is it's up to 10 years on a conservation easement, but it could be 5 years, and they may only give 20%. That's the city council will have discretion on that. Most likely, you would probably want to give a recommendation too as it goes through. That would be your role in this thing.
So my next question would be: since there is a huge amount of expense involved in doing, Jeffrey will back me up on this, those original initial elevations when you're redoing a house,
right?
You are paying someone like Jeffrey to do that. So if the incentive, if the homeowner's incentive is based upon the saving, in other words, they've elected to not demolish the place and build the McMansion with no architectural merit because they know, they've been told by us, the smiling us, that they are going to benefit for 10 years, we're just saying, as far as their property taxes go. They will. This is how we're rewarding that extra.
No, I agree. There's some incentive there, but we're talking about $1 million homes here.
Well, exactly.
And it isn't very much for $1 million home. I mean, you're talking about people with lots of money here, and some may do it because it's the right thing to do. But I don't think there's necessarily as much incentive of the savings for somebody on that, but we need to have it there. I'm just not as sanguine as you are about that this would be that people are going to come in line. I mean, we had so many people that didn't want us to do historic designation because they don't want their property rights removed. So in this case, but there are going to be some that I think would benefit from this. I mean, it is one way to do that. I just wouldn't oversell it.
I love you, but that was a time in history when it was so hard to talk to. Everyone had gold fever. And this department was not prepared to deal with that. I mean, we would have a tough time doing it today. It would still be delicate today. And so that, I think the response was due to the very last minute emergent kind of ham-fisted way. Wait a minute, we don't want to see that go. But, even though your intentions were good, there was no way for people to comprehend that in any fashion other than someone is trying to take my money away. Because I have the opportunity. I'm not
saying that there won't be people. I mean, I'm just saying it's a tool out there. Let's just don't,
But why I don't understand why the little neighborhoods would benefit more than the big ones.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
What if they do a $600 reno to an existing house that's being taxed?
I'm just telling you, I have not done a detailed research on that, but you're dealing with homes that are not as expensive, and people that normally own them, unless they're investing in it, or generally don't have the same resources as the people. You're talking about people who will buy a $1.8 million property and tear the whole thing down to build another $1.5 million.
I realize that.
You know, so from their standpoint, you know, it really isn't a lot, because our taxes, I forgot what our ad valorem is, only $2 something of that total ad valorem tax thing. It's just a small amount. So I could run numbers for you to show you that. That's all I'm saying.
Can you please? Because the ones that I looked at last night for New Smyrna and a couple of other cities were substantial, and they quoted expensive homes.
Well, they were substantial, but our ad valorem isn't a lot of it. That's why I said it'd be good to get the county. Yeah, I mean that's more than our taxes. I can tell you that.
We need to
look at the school district. We can't do school district. Yeah, but look. I think we're just arguing over something we don't have all the answers. It doesn't matter. We got a tool that we're going to put in place, and if it works right, that's fine.
I
just don't think that we should say that it isn't that great for the Osceola Park, because I think, or any of our inner city neighbors, I think there's an opportunity.
And I do think there are some properties on the island too that could benefit, because I look at some of the projects that have already been done, and I can look back and go, oh, that would have qualified for the tax incentive. So it will help people. I think it's always been difficult for me in the profession too. Because it is an incentive, but it's. I think that's what Tim's trying to say. It's not the saving grace of a project all the time.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an incentive.
Yeah. So let's look at it that way. And I mean, if it does, So I'm not trying to.
But we do need to pursue the county pursue with the county of them also adopting the ordinance, so we can get the maximum benefit.
I'll put some numbers together for you, okay? Then you can look at it. You can see where our taxes are such a small point.
What do we need to do next to talk with the county to
we put it in. I think what we would do is that I think you need to make a recommendation to City Council that you would like to the county to move forward with an ordinance that at least to cover the city that would give us a tax abate similar to what we have.
Were we going to wait for this first though to go to be?
We were going to wait till this went through before we did that.
So
we have a complete ordinance in place, and we're not.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to interject here too. I think in conjunction with the tax incentives, more people are green friendly, and Anna mentioned this in her presentation that we're putting together for educational purposes. I think a lot more people are going to be looking at the cost of renovating a home, even minor. Mm-hmm. Most of the older homes, and we found this out with our house, they were just built better. They hold up better. There's a lot of things that don't cost as much, especially if you're going to stay within the frame of that building. So I think there are ways. I think if we could show how they can actually save in the minor renovations and with the tax incentives, keep the house as it is, even landlords, because a lot of folks don't want to spend that much money. So I see a big incentive on the mainland. And I understand about the beach side. We're losing a lot of what was of historic value. There's not that much left. And it might be a worthy cause to approach the owner itself as opposed to a general overview. And there might be another way to do this. So
in Texas, when they identified their historic inventory and graded them, they sent cards out inviting designation.
I like that approach.
So I think there's many other approaches other than just. See, that's what I'm trying to say is we have approaches,
and
but they have a very, very liberal tax incentive. So
we have to follow the Florida statute. So there.
Well, I don't know what the
Texas
Texas statute is like, and how I'm going to look at it to compare the two. But I don't. How many work permits have been processed this year for Osceola Park and Original
They don't
Town?
always pull permits so that you can't go by that.
But here's my point. In order for them to benefit from what we're suggesting, that's part of the permitting process.
Well, that's the educational process.
Well, I know, but they're going to go, no, I'm not going to do that.
Well,
they have to if they get caught.
The project's got to be large enough. The project's got to be large enough for them to even want to do it. So pulling individual permits for minor things is not going to be worth their effort to go through all this to have, that's all I'm saying.
To be a major rehabilitation
Yeah.
to the exterior
and that's
of
where
the
it would
property.
happen.
So we're saying no one. They're the house across from the Mills house. They just redid that, and no permits were pulled for that.
I don't agree with that. You're not making a statement. You're making a rhetorical.
I'm just saying, if
there were
people
no
are not in the habit, if these homes are not don't have the value that would require people to go through the permitting process for ongoing repairs, be they roof repairs, adding a porch, whatever. If they're not doing that now, they're not going to submit to that process to get $100 off of their property taxes every year, because the permitting process is.
Well, I think Anna just pointed out it's going to have to be a major rehab.
Major rehabilitation.
It's not going to be minor things. People, they'd spend more money in just trying to do that to get that's all we're saying.
And the largest benefit actually comes from a property where it is not in good condition. It is run down, and somebody comes in and wants to turn a property around.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be the bigger differential on your property taxes from before the rehabilitation to after the rehabilitation. And that's what the incentive is saving you, that difference in the property assessment of your building.
Yes.
The other thing we're looking into, too, is insurance, because having an older home, we're going through something with our insurance right now. So there are things at the state level that I think that we could look at for incentives for older homes that don't have to be considered just old or they're going to blow over in a hurricane, because a lot of the older homes held up better. So that's even another issue. A lot of folks don't like the idea of buying an older home or repairing it because they think it's going to be too much to insure. They can't get insurance. So there are other issues, too, that we need to look at.
Do not mention that at our workshop.
Maybe when he comes down, they can talk.
As incentives, I think there are other things we can work on to help.
Yeah.
And as far as the preservation of older
Maybe
homes.
part of that workshop you have with the state officer, Zimney, to talk about insurance, he should be up on that. The problems of insuring these older homes.
Well, we're finding out some of it's bogus.
Yeah.
The reason they were going to actually deny us the following year, and the reason was because we're a tree limb, a stupid little frail tree limb. So, some of it's bogus, but some homeowners, if they don't know what to do or fight back.
But if you all recall, for those if you had gone to the original town, we had that neighborhood meeting in March. That came up from several of the
right, insurance. So it is a concern.
Yeah.
So I think if we can find a way to address that, because it is dealing with older homes, it will help us in the preservation of.
Well, go ahead and look at the National Trust for Historic Preservation website. There's some information on there about insuring historic homes.
Good.
So, for anybody who's listening.
Pen's going.
We're listening to you, Anna. The town in Texas has 80% participation. 80%. And she was apologetic. She goes, we don't have everyone.
I think the process
only have 80%.
I think the process that you mentioned is dynamite. I think with the survey, that's also going to give us a chance to engage the community again. The survey was done in 1990, so it'll give us a chance to engage people and have the discussion.
Listen,
and then sending the invite out if we can find a way to do that too.
This is beautiful in its simplicity, because what they do is, again, just require that you basically observe code restrictions. So you replace rotten wood, you don't have detritus in the front yard. 5 or 6, I don't know what their criteria are, but they're all just more related to upkeep and general maintenance that you should be doing anyway. And for that, you get, I think, 75% for 10 years. And then the Preservation Commission actually does a visual inspection. And she was saying the one problem they're having is with people that do not, that fail to keep their promise to maintain the properties after they have already participated in the program or have entered into that covenant agreement. Then she said many times council will allow them another year to get their act together. So she said the word is getting out that we really are not enforcing this, and that's going to be something they have to deal with. The other thing is, so they already have that in place. The houses have been designated, have been identified, and then if indeed they go ahead and do renovations, those renovations are going to be part of that process because it's based on the value of the home. You're saving 75% of your taxable value. So, and the other thing I noticed looking at Florida...
I'm sorry, the incremental value or the incremental value of the improvement?
So this is...
Yeah, I'm listening to you.
Yes, and in Florida, I noticed it's treated differently too, Tim. It was my impression that sometimes it was they received the benefit on the full value of the improvements, and other times it was just the taxable value of the improvements. I was amazed. That's a much more liberal way of looking at it, where they received the tax benefit on whatever they actually spent as opposed to the new taxable value of the property after the work is finished. So I think there's a lot of leeway in there that we may not even.
We got to follow the statutes.
Well, these are cities in Florida.
Can you send those out to us?
Yes.
Yeah, send out to us because this is very similar to everyone I've worked in Florida.
I know.
And the statutes are pretty clear how this is done. The discretion has to do with what the governing body has to do. Determining how many years and what percent and all that, up to 100%. So that's all right, but I would like to see that.
My attention to this is not that I'm just here picking apart what we're trying to assemble. If we're using the energy and the time to build something, we want to build the best thing.
Yeah, I follow you. That's fine. Yeah, we're not. Okay.
All right. I mean, I know you're working hard.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, you bring up Texas, which is great. I think it's good examples, but you got to be careful because the statutes and the powers of different localities under different state laws are a lot different. I mean, most of Texas, you got places like Houston with no zoning. You know what I'm saying. There's a lot of difference, so you got to be careful.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. But I think the ideas you brought up that they did would be great to implement. That whole idea about the priorities and all that, I think would be excellent. Okay? So.
All right, thank you.
I think we're on the same wavelength.
Thank you for your enduring patience.
Well, no, it is.
All right, members' matters. Anything else we need to mention, guys, today? Anything on your minds that we haven't
just
already?
A quick reminder about the marker dedication for Osceola Park on December 6th at 10 a.m.
December 6th.
Have you gotten any feedback, RSVPs?
No, I didn't do RSVPs. We're just putting out flyers. There's been good publicity and some invitations to dignitaries.
Is Peggy going to have her Christmas decorations up the same time?
I think she's getting nervous, but that's the goal. We are going to have the street blocked off for that time period since the marker is right next to the road.
Yeah.
And Ruth Stambridge and myself and Vicki Gold are going to speak. It should be fairly short. I estimate a half hour, and we'll have some refreshments afterwards. So,
is the sign going to be right on that corner?
The sign will not be right on the corner, but along 19th Street, just in from 20th Avenue. It's like the gateway into the neighborhood. And it's perpendicular, basically, to 20th Avenue.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that is going to be a happy, historic day. And then when we meet with Main Street, you'll be able to get them acquainted with the process of national designation in case they decide to.
Yes.
Super. So
anyone
that should
who's
capture
interested
their
in
interest.
National Register nomination or that process can ask me anytime.
Super. All right. Anything else that we need to consider, or is it time to say goodbye?
It's time.
Do we have to set? Well, we can't. It's next year. If we're not meeting in December, we have definitely decided not to have a meeting in December, gang.
Right, and I'll check dates for January and February, and I'll coordinate it with you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Happy holidays.
Hope Santa's good to you. All right. This meeting is adjourned.